organization Mahila Jagat Lihaaz Samiti started work in 2015 on the precarity in the livelihoods of the Bhil Adivasi farmers in western Madhya Pradesh, where we work, caused by chemical monoculture farming. Over the past decade or so, we have undertaken biodiverse, sustainable agriculture to address this problem. I'm going to detail the learnings from this experience that we have had over the past decade. This Bhil Adivasi lady that you can see in this picture, she's using a slingshot to shoo away the birds where there's a pearl millet. There's a crop of pearl millet. So I will come back to the importance of this activity later in the presentation. The main problem is that artificial input agriculture involves chemical fertilizers. And once you apply chemical fertilizers, the soil loses its own quality. And so the amount of application has to increase. So over the time, what happens is that if you are applying chemical fertilizers, the amount of application has to increase. Otherwise, the yields are going to fall. Now, as a consequence, what happens is that the soil is it's a living entity. The soil that we have naturally is a living entity. It has millions of microorganisms that do various kinds of activities that are beneficial to the plants. Now, what happens when chemical fertilizers are applied? These soil microorganisms, a lot of them are killed. So the soil loses its own qualities of nurturing the crop that is there. That goes, and the farmer becomes dependent only on chemical fertilizers. Then the other thing that was done is that instead traditionally we had biodivers, especially the Adivasis. They had biodiverse agriculture, various kinds of crops. There are 20-30 crops in one small farm. They would have 20-30 different kinds of crops. But when you mechanize agriculture and when you apply chemical fertilizers, then you because the cost goes up, you want to have hybrid varieties and monocultures. So in India, especially, what happened was that wheat and rice monocultures were brought in, which not only led to loss of agrobiodiversity, but also increased the water demand, because these both wheat and rice, the new varieties that came in, they were water demanding. So the water demand went up. Now, it's a tragedy that in this country, dam irrigation has been a colossal failure. That's a different subject matter altogether, which we will not discuss here. But as a result of that, what has happened is that in India, most of the irrigation is done from groundwater. And as Uma was saying, that has led to, mining of water from the deep aquifer, because the shallow aquifer cannot provide so much water. If you increase the water demand, the shallow aquifer will not be able to meet that. So then groundwater. Now this deep aquifer has water over thousands of years, water that has collected, gone, seeped down from the shallow aquifer into the deep aquifer and has collected over thousands of years. Now we have mined that water out in the space of just 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so now throughout the country, even in the Indo-Gangetic plains, we have a situation where water scarcity has come in. There's a Falcon mark indicator given by this hydrologist from Norway. And according to that, we are either water stressed or water scarce. Overall, in many parts of the country, we are that. Actually, the 70% of the country is naturally water scarce. So in there, on top of that, we have mined so much water. So this is one major problem. Now, when you do monoculture, what happens is pest attacks happen. So if there's a biodiverse crop, then the natural system, they balance each other and there are no pest attack. But if you have just one monoculture, one field just wheat and one field just rice, then this leads to pest attacks. So to avoid that, then you have to apply pesticides, which are very poisonous. So pesticides, they not only contaminate the soil and the water, they also contaminate the food. They are systemic pesticides. They go into the plants and they come out in the crops that are harvested. And finally, when we are eating, we eat those contaminated foods. That is why you have cancer and various other diseases going up. Now, this higher demand for chemical fertilizers and water is also accompanied by higher demand for electricity, because when you are pumping from the deep aquifer at very great depths, then you need more electricity and all that. So the costs are going up. Now, initially, when this whole system was introduced throughout the world, I will come to that later, that immense subsidies were given, to induce people, induce farmers to migrate from biodiverse and sustainable agriculture, which was what was going on before, to chemical agriculture and monocultures and all this. Huge subsidies were given. But from the 1990s, due to various other economic reasons, those subsidies have tapered off. So now the present situation is that the economics of farming has worsened tremendously. Now, this another problem is that in actually, if you have a field of say 1 acre, then in that 1 acre, under normal circumstances, if you're applying chemical fertilizers, nitrogen should be 24 kgs per acre, and phosphorus should be 12 kgs per acre, and potassium should be 12 kgs per acre. But what has happened in India is that the nitrogen, the urea, that is subsidized more. The subsidy that is given to urea is more than that is given to phosphorus and potash. So as a consequence, farmers, they are skewing this. Instead of 24 is to 12 is to 12, in some cases that ratio goes to, in Punjab, it has gone up to 58 is to 1. Because in many cases it's free. They get it free. So this, what has happened is that this skewing of application of nitrogen. Now the plant has so much capacity to absorb nitrogen. It cannot absorb, if you give 58 times, it won't absorb all that. It will absorb only that much that it can take. So the rest, what happens to the rest? There are denitrifying bacteria in the soil. They act on this excess nitrogen and they produce nitrous oxide. So this is a major problem that is happening, that, because of this higher application of nitrogen, this global warming is taking place through nitrous oxide. And some of that, most of that nitrogen also penetrates the water. So if you see the CGWB reports throughout the country, there's huge nitrate contamination of water. So whatever water we are drinking, that water, if you are just drinking clear without going into some treatment process, that is all contaminated with nitrogen. So that again, along with pesticides and all that, leads to various kinds of diseases. Next is soil erosion. That, as I said, soil is a living kind of thing. So if you normally you mulch and you have various other things that bind the soil together. So in mechanical farming with chemical fertilizers and all that, soil quality goes and erosion takes place. So soil erosion, and along with the nutrients and everything, we are losing. So the quality of soil has a capacity to act as a carbon sink. That quality of soil, a huge amount of soil carbon can be actually absorbed by the soil. That capacity has gone because of this chemical farming. And this is the most important, that if you see the history, the feminist historians, they have researched the prehistory, and they have found out evidence that, most probably it is women who discovered agriculture. The seeds, the wild seeds that are there, to domesticate them and realize that they can give you food, and so agriculture and civilization, everything and so women controlled the seeds for a long period of time. But once this chemical agriculture came in and the market-led economics came in, so the women were marginalized from this activity. So they are now just laborers in the field. The whole thing is controlled by men and the market and all that. So the women, so you get, and since they are not getting paid, you see, when the produce is sold in the market, it is sold by the men, and the men control the money, and they don't give it to the women. So those women are considered unpaid. They are actually working. They are doing backbreaking labor on the field, but they're not getting paid for it. So if you're not paid, that in economics, that is the thing, that if you're not paid, then that is not considered, a labor. So they are considered unemployed. Though now they have changed it in the labor force survey, that is labor force participation survey from this year. They have started counting women, household women working on their own fields as employed also. But normally, so this is a very serious problem that has taken place due to chemical agriculture. Now, This is from the survey, the National Sample Survey, 77th round in 2019, where they surveyed farming. So this is from that. I have collated from that. So this shows for all the states in this country. The blue one showing that proportion of the crop that is sold at MSP. This thing of minimum support price, support that is given. One of the forms of subsidies that is given to the farmers is to give them a minimum support price that is above the market price if the market price is less. So that is one column, and the other column is the crop income. The income from the crop, the household income, the household farming household, the income that it gets from the crop as proportion of the total consumption expenditure of the farming household. So you will see that except for say Chhattisgarh and Kerala, where the minimum support price, the number of farmers selling at minimum support price is high. Everywhere, even Punjab, it is only 25%. So normally this minimum support price that is there, that is should be there for farmers, it is availed by very few people. And the other thing to note is that the very low, the farming, the amount of income that farmers are getting from farming, because farming has now become very loss-making proposition, they are not covering the consumption expenditure, except for this Meghalaya, which is an outlier. I don't know, they must have made some mistake in calculation. So this Meghalaya is showing that the household expenditure, the crop income is more than 100% of household expenditure. Otherwise, if you see this outlier, if you leave out throughout the states, even in Punjab, which is and Haryana, which are supposed to be, great states for agriculture, where green revolution is supposed to have been successful, even there, the proportion of income, crop income, that is covering household expenditure is very low. Next, from that same NSS survey, I have collated some more data, which is also very disturbing. The first thing, this blue one is annual crop income per hectare. So annual crop income per hectare is very low, and you will see that for low this thing for 0.01 to 0.04 hectare holdings, the annual crop income is actually higher than for higher holdings. When the holding is higher, more than 10 hectares, the crop income per hectare is lower than that for this. This is because of women in these households who are working free. That is not counted. That is why their labor, they are giving free labor. That is why you see, and this goes down. As the land holding increases, the amount of labor that has to be applied from outside, that increases, and that has to be paid for, because household labor cannot take place. So this is an important kind of thing that has come out from this. Next is, indebtedness. Obviously, the smaller households, the ones with less farms, they will have higher debt burden. Okay, and that goes down. And the most important part is this: you see this black line which says the other annual income. That means that all these households, even a household that is more than 10 hectares, has to rely on other income. They have to do other work apart from what they do. That is obvious, because the household expenditure is not covered by this crop income. So this is the very sorry state that has come due to this chemical agriculture, where you have seen that the costs have gone up, and the prices that they are getting in the market, that they are not covering their costs. Now I will talk about what is happening in our area. These data that I now show you, these are from our own surveys that we have conducted in the Western Madhya Pradesh region over the past 10 years. And see, the first thing is that the daily per capita consumption of calories of these households is 2092, whereas in rural areas it should be 2400, and some households are very low. And we have a reproductive health program for women, in which we measured their BMI and hemoglobin, and those are also very severely low. So first thing is that due to this whole thing, that they're not earning enough, their malnutrition is there. Next, if you see average daily per capita food consumption expenditure, which is very low, 43. When we conduct their household consumption expenditure survey, That is 43. Can you imagine a person, living on just 43 rupees a day? What kind of food that they are getting? That is why there is malnutrition. And I assume that that this food consumption expenditure for these poor households is half of their total consumption expenditure. So total consumption expenditure is 87. This is estimated on the basis of this. Now, next is average daily per capita farm income. We have divided by 365 days. If you divide by, they are not working for 365 days, but they have to provide for themselves. So that the whole income that they get in 1 year from their farms, that if you divide by 365 days, it comes to just per capita rupees 14. So that is, it doesn't even cover their food cost, let alone their other costs. And if you divide by the total number of days of household labor that they have given, so then it comes to 72, because the number of days is just 54. These are all small farms. 86% of the farming households in this country are small farmers who have on an average around 1 acre or 1.5 acres of land. So on that, they cannot earn much. They can't do much work. So they get only 54 days of work in that. And the average annual income per acre is just 11,900, around 12,000 rupees, which is very low. Now, here I have estimated from, why am I saying that this income is very low? See, the FAO has said that in South Asia, for a person to get a healthy diet, the cost is US $4 per person per day. That is, and if you use all these PPP conversion rate, purchasing power conversion rate and everything, finally, it comes to 400. That means a household, assuming 4.4 people, that is the current, the household size in it, dividing the population by the number of households. So then the food expenditure alone comes to rupees 400 per day. The food expenditure alone is 400 per day. And then if this NSA, the National Sample Statistical Organization that conducts a household consumer expenditure survey, and the latest one was in 2022-23, in which it said that food expenditure is 43% of the total household consumption expenditure. So if you need a healthy diet and other requirements of a good life, along with that, get ill or you want to build a house or something, you need money for that. So if you get that, then a decent income is 4,25,000 per year, whereas these people are getting only 12,000. So that farming community is in very bad shape economically. Now next, I will come to why this is happening. So this I have given the data for USA, because in USA this data was available from 1923. Chemical farming took off in a big way in the early decades of the last century, in the 20th century. So I have taken, because today is 2023, this I had calculated last year. So I took from 1923. Over a 100-year period, what has happened? The price of wheat in the US has gone up 510%. This is the change. This is giving you the change. Whereas the price of gold has gone up 8,782%. And the CPI, this is the consumer price index, that has gone up 1,700%. So you can see the injustice here, that the consumer price index has gone up 1,700%, but the wheat price that the farmers are getting, that has gone up only 510%. Now, if you see the wheat production, but the wheat per capita, that has actually gone down. The amount of availability of wheat per capita has gone down, while that of gold has gone up. So normally you would expect, if the amount of availability is going down, then the price should go up, but that is not happening. So why is this not happening? This is not happening because for industry, you have to keep food prices. If you let food prices inflate at the same rate as gold and even the CPI, then there will be riots, because then people will demand more wages and all that. So to keep the wages low, food prices. How is this done? How is this done? Because if the market had played, then the food prices should have been more. So here I'm sharing another graphic on how this is done. This is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They estimate something called producer support estimate for farming, that how much of the gross farm receipts is supported by subsidies of various kinds by the government from 2013 to 2022. Now you can see that in OECD countries that subsidy is 12.91%, 12.91. Whereas in India, it is actually negative. That means in India, even though we are giving minimum support price and we are giving chemical fertilizer subsidy and various other subsidies, because the cost of things are so high that the farmers have to get, they actually pay more. They are not getting any support. They are actually paying more to the state. They're paying more to the state through taxes. The people say the farmers don't pay taxes. They don't pay income taxes because they don't have any income, as you saw. Where will they pay income if they income tax if they don't have any income? But they are paying other taxes, GST, and that goes out. So compared to OECD, compared to United States, compared to Australia, and even Brazil, our country, we are cheating our farmers. First, it is energy efficient. The whole because you don't need to put in fertilizers are hugely energy consuming, and they have to be brought to the farm on tractors and things. They have to be transported from factories and things. So there's a huge amount of energy. This because it's in situ. The inputs in the farming in sustainable farming are in situ. They are not there. And the other thing is that the emissions are much lower. NO2, the main problem of NO2 and CO2 emissions, they are much lower in sustainable farming. Next, because you use mulching and compost and all that, and retain the soil quality. So what I had mentioned, that due to chemical farming, the soil loses its capacity to absorb carbon. It is opposite here. Soil becomes very rich and it can absorb carbon. So and it has nitrogen fixing plants also. The nitrogen part is actually not applied from outside so much as produced in situ through nitrogen fixing plants, through crop rotation, cover, and all this kind of things. So this nitrogen also is fixed into the soil. It does not go out with water and air and pollute our food and things like that. And the most important is that soil microorganisms, because the whole soil health is renewed because you're using in situ techniques of compost and all that. Biomass is also composted. So soil microorganisms thrive, and in the process they oxidize atmospheric methane. Another problem is there that methane in large quantities is emitted from agriculture. That problem is solved if you do sustainable agriculture, because the soil microorganisms oxidize that methane and don't let it go out into the atmosphere. Then the agrobiodiversity is more, because in one farm, instead of just one or two crops, you will be sowing 20, 30 crops. All those are there. So pesticide is not required. The pesticide problem goes. Water use is also controlled, because all these millets and things, they require very little water to grow. So in that way also, the amount of water that is required, that also is controlled. So all these problems are solved. Then sustainable farming is very labor intensive. Okay, and it requires community participation. It's not just a question of farming. You have to have ecosystem restoration. The forests and the pastures, everything has to be done. Then soil and water conservation work has to be done, and that can't be done by one farmer alone. The whole community has to come together and do it. So it's labor. This whole problem of there is no labor I mean, though no employment in agriculture, that has been created by chemical farming. That is not compensating the farmers so much. So here in this case, this whole problem of labor is solved. And finally, the most important is that women's decision making in farming is restored. It comes whatever you're using from the farm itself. So this whole problem of women being marginalized from farming, that problem is also solved as a result. Now, all it is good to hear, but actually it is very problematical. So it's not that you can bring in sustainable agriculture very easily. So I will just list what are the problems that are there. First, you don't have enough cow dung. See, because of increase of population, the amount of grazing land available, that has gone down. So cattle holding has gone down. And if cattle holding goes down, then availability of cow dung. So the main problem why chemical agriculture came in was this, that you had to extend farming to other areas. And for that, you didn't have enough manure. So that manure is not there. So in that case, that chemical farming has come in. So if you want to replace chemical farming with sustainable farming, then you have to make sure that adequate amount of cow dung is available, cow dung and manure is available. That is a very difficult task. Then there's one way in which you can increase the amount of manure available. That is by composting. You use 9 parts of biomass, agri biomass and forest biomass. That is why I said that forests and grazing land has also to be there. And that 9 parts of biomass you mix with 1 part of cow dung, and then you compost that. So in that way you can increase the amount of manure availability. But that requires a huge amount of hard labor. There are also biocultures and all. So that requires a lot of labor. Who is going to pay for that labor? That is the question. Then similarly, forest, soil and water conservation work also, even if the community does it together, that is also involves a lot of labor. So that is another constraint. And the problem is that even after doing all this, even after doing these first three, the amount of output that comes, because some of these things like millets and all, they are naturally less productive, compared to rice and wheat, the hybrid varieties of rice and wheat. So however much you can regenerate the soil and all that, eventually the amount of output is going to be less. And this, I come back to that photo that I had shared, that this biodiverse agriculture, you have various millets and crops. They all ripen at different times. Okay, the first will be one variety of foxtail millet will ripen early. Then there will be another variety of foxtail millet. Then there will be barnyard millet. Then there will be something else. Finally, there will be rice. Then there will be sorghum, and in between you have maize and all this. So now, as the crops reach the ripening stage, the birds come. Especially nowadays, what is happening is that the number of people doing this biodiverse farming is limited. Like for instance, I will talk about that later. We have a experimental farm of our own, where it is a very difficult task to keep the birds away. So this is another problem that is there in sustainable biodiverse agriculture, that you will have to keep the bird, unless of course everybody starts doing this. Then what happens is the amount of birds that are coming to the number of fields that are there, that are more, so the birds get distributed. But in a situation in which mostly there is chemical agriculture and you are trying to introduce sustainable biodiverse agriculture, then this is a big problem. Then after the harvest, the produce has to be stored without pesticides. Now, the chemical agriculture, whatever we are eating, from the market, whatever we are getting, they are all, laced with pesticides. Without that, they wouldn't survive. 4, 5 months, 6 months like that, they are staying in godowns and all that. Finally, it is reaching us. They are all, laced with pesticides which we are consuming. But in sustainable agriculture, you can't have pesticides. So this is a major issue. There are ways in which you can, store things, but they are labor-intensive methods. I won't go into them. But that involves a lot more labor. So this is another problem that is there in sustainable agriculture. And then processing, so rice and wheat, they already have, machines and all that in which they have to be processed. Traditionally, all these millets and all used to be processed by hand and foot pounding, which is very laborious. So slowly women, they decided that they have given up doing that. So they have gone on to rice and wheat and things like that, because they are easy to process. So this whole thing of processing, and once they are processed, they deteriorate very fast. The millets and all. Once you have processed, within 10-15 days you have to consume it. Otherwise, they will get attacked by pests. Now, the thing is that all this means that the produce of sustainable agriculture, that is more costly. So in the local people, the farmers, as you saw, they don't have any money, so they are not going to buy. They might consume themselves, but if they want to sell locally, there is nobody to buy these things. So they have to sell in cities, and in cities also, the number of people who can buy these sustainable products of sustainable agriculture, which don't have any pesticides in them, that is very limited. So this is another problem, that where will you get your income from after doing sustainable agriculture? So we try to tackle this problem. We set up this collective called Kansari Organics. It is still there. There's an online store in which we sell these products. But the problem here is that the cost is so high. First of all, the cost is high, and then to deliver online through parcel post, That is another cost. So it becomes very costly. Say something that in the normal market you will get at say 30, 40 rupees a kilo. This, if we do it through this online marketing, that will cost some 100, 150 rupees a kilo. So how many people are going to be able to buy it? Very limited number of people. So our store, it's still there. We still sell something, but it's not a viable kind of thing. So eventually what happened was that and the name Kansari is the Bhil Adivasi goddess of life. I will speak more about her later in the last slide. So this is the thing. So as I said, the price is more, and delivering it to customers across the country, that also adds to the price. So it become a very big problem. So eventually, most of our produce, whether it's millets, wheat, rice, and all that remain unsold. And as I told you, you can't keep it for a long time because then pests will attack. So the Majlis, which is the mother NGO, bought that whole thing from Kansari. So Kansari, didn't suffer a loss. The Kansari collective, we bought that, and that time it was the second phase of COVID-19 pandemic. So we distributed free to the Adivasis. So the Majlis gave a subsidy to this whole operation. That I was just saying that how difficult it is. Now, if we come at the India level, at the whole India level, the total agricultural production, the value of the total agricultural production is 17 lakh crores, in India, all production that is there. Now, only 1.3% of all farming households on 1.5% of the arable land are doing sustainable farming. And the value addition, the value is 16,000 crores. So you can see it's not even 1%, less than 1% of the whole agriculture. So people say that the agricultural market is growing at 20%, 30% like that. But the base is low. That is why it is growing at 20, 30%. It is 1% of the total. So if this 16,000 goes to say 17,600, then it will be 10% growth. So but the base is very low. Okay. Now, if you see the total export, okay, so export part of this value addition is 7,000 crores, and soya meal that constitutes 57%. Those people in the USA or EU or whatever who want to drink organic milk, they have to feed their cows with organic milk. So that organic soya milk, our country exports a lot of soya milk to all these countries where milk and meat are produced. And so those people who want organic milk, they are import very little, the export part of the market. Now this whole export market, see why the export comes in, because as I said, the number of people in India who can buy this are very limited. The number of people in the US and EU and all, they are much more in number. So they import from India and various other places also. But there's a huge transaction barrier there, because you have to certify. The big thing is that India, the whole market, this organic food market is filled with spurious stuff. If you whatever you buy something from the market and take it thinking that, believing that it is actually organic, but it is not. It's most probably spurious. Contaminated stuff is being passed off as organic. So what the US and EU have done is that they have they allow you to export only if they certify. Their people from US and EU, they will come to India, they will test your product, and they will certify that it is organic. Only then you can export there. Obviously, this is very difficult for most countries. So who are actually exporting? It is actually importing. See, suppose in Switzerland, there is some company out there is selling in the market organic food, so that it comes here and gets in touch with farmers and controls their output and everything and their certification and like that. So for a normal farmer, especially Adivasi farmer, to be able to access this European market, it's out of the question. So what is happening is that from organic farming that has been done, whether it is on their own, farmers are doing on their own, or it is through farmer producer organizations or contract farming. Actually, there are studies for this that show that the farmers actually are getting very little. It is all these middlemen who are these big companies who are earning whatever is the margins are there in organic farming, and the profits, the farmers don't earn anything. All this talk goes of about FPOs and all that. There are a few successful FPOs, but they are all supported by these kind of companies, ITC, Hindustan Lever. That is another this thing that even all these big food companies, ITC, Hindustan, they also have an organic channel, and they access their food, this organic produce, from some farmers, captive farmers, and they pay them something, but that is minimal. We have lakhs and lakhs of farmers in this country, and some few thousands of people are actually benefited. The rest of the people are not benefited. So this is the problem of the agricultural sustainable agriculture market. So now what is the solution? So what we are suggesting is that you have to have a circular economy. You can't have farmers selling their produce, trying to sell their produce to cities, because they can't do it. And actually, who actually make money out of that globally, it's not just a question of India, is all these big companies, big multinationals and things are there, like ITC, there's some Cargill and all that there in the USA. So if you see the US market, actually the farm economy is just 0.5 or 0.6% of the GDP. And there also they get subsidy. Most of the farms in US are owned by all these big companies, and they get a subsidy from the US government, because their costs are not covered for the farming part, chemical farming part. But the food economy is 6%. So these big companies that control this whole food industry, it's an industry actually there in the US. Out of that, they 0.5% of the GDP is there. They get a subsidy from that, so that they don't make a loss there. And that food, say wheat, then they process, make it into bread, this, that, and all, cakes and things like that, and then sell it to the consumer. And in US, nobody has time to cook, so they buy and put it in the microwave and then eat. So they make their money out there. So now that kind of thing can't succeed in India. So we here need a circular economy. So this graphic is self-explanatory. You have biodiverse cropping, and you have you can produce renewable energy also from that, from biogas and biomass gasification and things, all that. And then the residue that comes in, that enriches the soil gets enriched, and you have forest, soil, and water conservation also going along. That also contributes to this, and eventually it all comes round. So you have a circular economy where you have energy also and everything. But what is the problem with this? The problem is that there is no investment. The farmer, who is going to do this? As I said, this is very labor intensive. Now, that for that labor, the farmer is not getting paid. Suppose we propose this kind of a circular economy, how is it going to run? So the thing is that we have to provide subsidy. As I said in that first graphic that had shown, that actually the government is not supporting, it is taking from the farmers. It's in India, it is taking away from the farmers. We have to reverse that, and we have to produce. We have one of the best programs, the ecosystem restoration programs in the world, MGNREGS. Our organization, initially when MGNREGS was introduced in 2006 or 7, we milked it like anything. We used to give in. It was a demand. It's a demand-based program. So all our organization, all the village people, they used to give in this thing that we want to do soil and water conservation, and we want to do forestation and all these kind of things, and those schemes would this thing sanctioned, and we would do it. But later on, this whole program has been sabotaged. The government now, even though it gives around 60,000, 70,000 crores a year, most of that money is not going for ecosystem restoration. It is going for building roads and buildings, and all that kind of thing, which has its use, but it's not being used for this circular economy. So this is what needs to be done. You need to have a circular economy that is funded by MGNREGS, and it is not as if it's a handout to the farmers. This renews our ecology. It renews the farming livelihood. It gives us good food. The kind of food that we are eating now, we are all suffering from various diseases because we are eating all adulterated stuff. All adulterated and contaminated stuff. So the whole country's health is at stake for that, we have to invest. And MGNREGS is an excellent program. We can put in some conditions and all that, as to what that money is to be spent for. So this is the actually the solution that we have to go for. Now, I will talk about our own organization. This is the farm. This is the background. You can see a photo. That is the demonstration farm. When we bought it in 2015, it was barren land. It was totally barren land. And we bought this farm just for that sake, that we will convert a barren land into a green haven. And that is what has happened. Soil and water conservation, not a single drop of water flows out from this. In fact, we have made a bund that is on top of this. There is a bund, there's a stream that used to flow through our farm. We blocked that stream. There's a pond out there, so that water does not flow on the surface. It goes down into the ground, into the shallow aquifer, and then goes down into the in the aquifer. It flows in the aquifer. And there are trees and everything, and so there's renewable energy. So this farm is what I was saying. It's a circular farm. Everything is there. Of course, the money is coming from Mahila Jagat Lihaaz Samiti. It can't survive on its own. We are supporting it from our NGO, and we have given it the name. It is called Center for Integrity of Creation. Now the thing is that what do we do from here? What we try to do is that we do our own research and development, and then we get in touch with farmers and institutions, and also try to influence the government, though that is a very difficult task. Whether it's international agencies, government, nobody is listening to us. But that is our thing, that whatever we have said, that circular economy, we cannot do it as an NGO. We can just do it in some few acres and hectares. If it has to be done at the global or the country level, then actually the government and bigger institutions have to come into the picture. So this is the situation that is there at the moment, which is not a very happy situation. So what can we do? You know what? So here I will come to this organization. There's a women's organization. As I said, the main problem with this chemical agriculture, it marginalizes women. So there's a women's organization, and this lady here is my wife, Subhadra Khaparde. She is the one who has formed this organization, and these are all members, various members that are there, senior members and some young women also. They are there. So what are they doing? The name is Kansari no Badam. Now Kansari, see, there's this creation myth of the Bhil Adivasis, where they say that, you know, the god formed the human form, but it did not have life. And then the gods told the goddess Kansari, who is symbolized by the cereal jowar or sorghum. So told her to suckle this inanimate form. So when the jowar suckled the inanimate form, then it became life. So human life was formed. So that is the story. That is why we have taken this name. And the goddess Kansari is very important. So so the whole thing is that this is going, this jawar and all that, they are going. So what these women have said, that look, we can't sell this thing in the market because nobody will buy at this cost, but we can at least produce for our own consumption. Because anyway, the farm, they have, say, 1 acre, 1.5 acre, 2 acre farm and all that. Anyway, that does not produce much. They have to migrate to Gujarat, and some Adivasis have gone as far as Kerala also, to work. So they have to supplement whatever little they get from the farm with external labor in other industries and places. So what these women have said, that, okay, one small part of our farm, say half an acre or that, we will do this kind of biodivers. You can see this is Vesti Bai. Okay, see the crop in front is Rala. This is foxtail millet. And behind you can see various other kinds of crops. So in 1 acre, you have 20, 30 crops. They are all doing. This one also, this is maize. Here you have sesama and all this. This is Karoti Bai, another senior lady of this organization. So, and this is Sanju, this is the new generation. Okay. So what they are saying, and they're very happy. They're saying that we had forgotten this taste of, all this jowar, bajra, and all these things, rala and all that. Now we have got, so at least we are eating better. They are not earning much money, so they are eating better, and so this is spreading. As a women's movement, it is spreading. But of course, that is not enough. As I said, at the government level, something has to be done if we have to revive our agriculture.